Hi guys, welcome back. It's Kirsten and today's recommendation video is something slightly different. I wanted to do books with LGBTQIA plus representation, and I read a lot of fantasy books and classic books. Classic books don't have much representation of the community within them. I believe that's more just to do with the time that they are set in because it was very frowned upon. But our fantasy books today, we really don't have that to use as an excuse. It made me realise how many books is still such heterosexual relationships throughout them. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a heterosexual relationship. I'm heterosexual myself, but I do feel we should be better at representing everybody, regardless of your preference or how you identify yourself. It's nice to feel identified and represented within a book. I really wanted to do a video which highlights some of the books that I have read with LGBTQIA plus representation, make it a goal to try and read more books with that, especially as we are in June, which is the Pride month. So that's enough of the introduction. Let's get straight to some of these books that I have really enjoyed. So first of all, I just wanted to do a special mention, which is Cashel's Dart by Jacqueline Carey. I actually got a new version. For those of you that watched my previous vlog, you'd realise how battered my copy was. But this book is based on a religion which is love as thou will, and they really do hold to that. So throughout this book, we do actually have a gay romance in here that's not present anymore. It happened in the past, but is very much a part of who he is and part of the plotline of this book. And also within it, you do see sapphic relationships, you see things, because they literally, this culture is love as thou will. They do not judge, and I love that, and I think it's beautiful. It is a bit of a chunkier fantasy book at over 900 pages, but I do think it does a really good job of representing everybody and being pretty much like, you love how you want to, we will not judge you for this. It's a society that's really judgment free when it comes to things like that, so I'd had to mention this book because I don't think it gets enough love anyway, and the fact that it is so inclusive of everybody regardless of taste. Again, it's not at the forefront of this, but it's just woven in because it's part of their society. So it's not something where they make a really big show of, oh, look at these two females together or something like that. It's not like that. It is accepted, and that's what I love about this book. Then we have a sapphic romance within The Deathless Girls by Kieran Millwood Hargrove. This is a Dracula's Brides retelling, so we're seeing the story of how Dracula's brides became Dracula's brides. Now this is a lovely story of sisterly love as well, and also a sapphic romance that blossoms within it, which I think is really lovely. I really enjoyed this story. The ending is a little bit rushed with the explanation of the third Dracula's bride, but I think the rest of it is really well done. Now there's not a lot of like vampires in here or anything like that. This is more a historical fantasy, but without the vampire side of it. It is just the story behind his wives and how they came to be. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought the sapphic romance was really lovely, and you see how much sisterly love plays a part of it and how much you have to sacrifice for those that you love. So I really did enjoy this one. Then we have Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna Maguire. This is part of the Wayward Children series, which is a series I really love, and I think it does a really good job of being inclusive of everybody. They are short stories, but each story has a point to it. So in this one, it's about not forcing your children to be raised in an image that you prefer, but instead accepting them for who they are. And all of these books are about children trying to find who they are and find their place that they belong, regardless of where that may be. So I've always enjoyed this series, but this one in particular, we do have a sapphic romance in here. I really liked. It's not at the forefront of the story by any means, but I do really like it, and I like the way it blossoms. And again, there's no judgment. It is just seen as this is an acceptable part of life, which I love. So yeah, I really recommend this Wayward Children series if you like portal fantasies. They can be a little bit heavy-handed in the point that they're getting across, but considering that it is so short, I do understand why that is. I've got 2 books left to read before I've like finished everything that's published so far, and they're just so good. This one is technically a prequel to the first book, which is Every Heart a Doorway. So you have Every Heart a Doorway, which is book 1, and then the next books either take place before that book, you're learning more about our individual characters that you met in Every Heart a Doorway, or they take place after that book where they're continuing on from the fallout of that book. So I really like the way it's done. You can pretty much read them in whatever order you would like, so I think it works really well. And like I said, they're very non-judgmental, which is what I'm looking for in these sort of books, and definitely what I want to read more of. Then we do actually have the only classic book that I have found so far that actually has some form of LGBTQI plus representation, and that is Camilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, and this is actually the book that came before Dracula, so this is why Camilla is referred to as Queen of Vampires, because Camilla is a vampire. And in this we actually do have a sapphic romance. Now this romance is very subtle, and we see our main character kind of warring with it, and she's not sure. She's like, oh, should I be feeling this way, you know, about another girl and all of this, and she feels unsettled. Now that does work for obviously the time that this has been written, but I do love the fact that we do have a classic book that actually does represent that, and there isn't too much of that judgment on being like, this is wrong. She's more feeling like, is this right? Should I be feeling this way? And still feels that way. So our main character feels very conflicted about how she feels, and I liked that. This is another short story, but it's one that I really recommend. If you've read Dracula, then please read this, because this one came first and it's so much easier to read. In a way, I do prefer this to Dracula because it's so easily accessible. It has that gothic horror element to it, and we have our sapphic romance. So I do think it works really well. Now, as said, sapphic romance is not explicit in any way. It is more our main character struggling with who she is and how she feels, but I still think it's a really good one. And if you have any more classic books with representation within them, please let me know, because I would be really interested to check those out. Then we have a book with transgender representation, and that is Wonderland by Juno Dawson. This is an Alice in Wonderland retelling, which I've been talking about a little bit on my channel lately with my retellings book recommendations, but this I really enjoyed because our main character is transgender, and we do see her side of that, of the struggle that she went through, how she identifies herself, and I really enjoyed it. I loved our main character. I loved seeing how she identified herself and the struggle that she went through with her family and everything. I just think it was really well done. Plus, alongside that, you get the Alice in Wonderland retelling, which is always a way to win my heart because I love retellings of classic books. So yeah, really recommend this one for some transgender representation. It is a bit of a weird, unusual story because you do get that dreamlike Alice in Wonderland vibe from this, and yeah, I really did enjoy this one. Then we have a book that is just beautiful and I loved it so much, and that is House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Cloone. This is a beautiful story. I want to get more of TJ Cloone's books because I just think they are stunning, and this has a beautiful gay romance in it. It is lovely, but not only that, but we also have a story that tells us that you should not judge people. Like, do not judge people just based on your assumptions. Like, get to know people, and I love it. We are following our main character as he is going to this home for children with magical abilities, but these particular children have been ruled as too dangerous, and so his job is to go along, assess the situation, make sure they're being looked after properly, make sure that where they are is a safe environment for them. He then realizes some things about himself along the way, and you meet all these children. You've got Lucy, who is the son of Lucifer, which is, yes, so good. We have so many magical children involved in this, and you can see how they've all been not mistreated, but treated unfairly because of misconceptions of other people. And then throughout this you also have the gay romance blossoming, and it's just, honestly, if you want a book that feels like a warm hug, this is the book for it. And like I said, I'm going to be getting more of TJ Cloone's books because I have nothing but praise for this book. It was a 5-star read, and if you're going to take any of the books out of this, read this one because it is so good and I recommend it to everybody. Yes, it is a middle grade book, but it is for everybody, and I think everybody should read this. Okay, so back into adult fantasy, we have Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Now this has sapphic romance throughout it, which is the main romances that you get throughout this book, because we are in a convent of nuns who are pretty much assassin nuns is kind of where it goes, and we are following our main character Nona Grey. She is taken to this nunnery, and while she's there she learns to become an assassin, and there is, I mean, the world building and stuff is amazing. Now I will admit, Mark Lawrence is an author that's kind of hit and miss with me. I've tried his other books and didn't get on with them, but this trilogy I really enjoyed. I thought it worked really well. We get little snippets of what's going to happen in the future while we're watching Nona Grey grow up and the fallout of everything, and you also have some magic in here as well. It's a bit complicated for me to explain all of it in depth because, to be honest, there's too much of that, but to give a brief overview, it is basically Nona Grey going to this convent where they are being trained up to be assassins, and you can choose your path that you want to go down, and they also have magical abilities, and depending on what innate ability you have will depend on how that progresses. So you have some people that are called Gerents, which are huge and really strong, and then you have some people that can work shadows and hide unseen in shadows. You can also have people that can do a bit more like, they call it thread work, where you can connect to things with your mind and kind of do thread work and stuff to create it all. Now, Nona is very special in the sense that she has several abilities wrapped up into one. It's really good because you have like a prophecy going on. We're in this world where it's pretty much at an ice age, apart from this metal disc in the sky, which is trying to direct the sun rays onto a narrow strip around the world and trying to keep that going as much as possible. Now, we have some people that are trying to control that so that they control where people can live and, you know, pretty much rule the world in that case. And there is a prophecy around it all, and Nona Grey gets tangled up in it. But throughout this, because they're all at a convent, you do see a lot of sapphic romance in this. One in particular is between the teachers, which is lovely. I really enjoyed that romance. So yeah, this is a really good book if you're looking for fantasy, but you also want a little bit of sapphic romance chucked in. Okay, then we have my favourite trilogy of last year. I absolutely fell in love with it, and that is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. Now, I love this series. Now, the romance in particular doesn't take place until the second book, and I don't want to specify too much because for me, I went into it not knowing, and I loved it so much. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Now, this is taking place in the past in Japan, and there's a lot of mythology going on, and basically we are following a kitsune, and she is a trickster fox from Japanese mythology, and she's been tasked to protect this piece of a dragon scroll because once every 1,000 years you can call upon the dragon and he will grant a wish. Now, a lot of evil people try and use this wish to have world domination and stuff, so she is trying to stop that. Alongside her, you have this kind of group that they pick up along the way in this first book to help her with that, and then the second book you see their relationships really connect, and that's when you start seeing this beautiful romance blossom. And again, I don't want to say too much. Obviously, because it's in this video, you will get a hint of it anyway, but it is beautiful, and the third book made me cry my heart out because of what happens, and I think it's beautiful. And I love how when the romance is blossoming, because of the time that it's set, they do deal with a lot of like, you know, this isn't good, you know, I'm not good for you, you deserve better than this, I don't want to disgrace you and stuff, but you see the romance blossom in spite of all of that, which I think is beautiful. And if you're looking for a really good mythology inspired book, this is a great one too. So this one ticked so many boxes for me. I really loved it. Even the fight scenes in this, I know that's not related to this video, but the fight scenes in this were spectacular as well. So yeah, really recommend this trilogy, and although the romance doesn't start blossoming properly until the second book, I do think it's worth it. Then we have another sapphic romance book. You can kind of see how I've mainly got sapphic romance or gay romance, which proves that I need to branch out more in my representations that I read. One of the sapphic romances that I really enjoyed last year was These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. Now, this is like a modern day witches. We are in Salem, and I really enjoy it. There is a bit of a mystery going on because we have some witches that are being targeted, and our main character believes it's from a blood witch that she bumped into in the summer previously, which you don't see much of it. Now, there is a few different bits in this. So we have our main character who has just come out of a relationship with one of the other girls, and it's getting a bit toxic. You see how it's affecting them. You see the other girl trying to force her to get back with her and stuff. So you do have all of that trigger warnings. But then you also have another character that's just moved into town, and our main character starts falling in love with her, and you start seeing their relationship blossom. And alongside that, you have the modern day witches, a bit of a mystery going on. I really need to continue with this and get the second book. I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for a witch book with sapphic romance, this is definitely the one. I thought it was really well done. I really liked the way they explain their elemental magic, the struggle to try and stay hidden within society. I really enjoyed this one. It was a really fun read, and yeah, I really need to get this second book. Okay, and the last one I'm going to talk about today is one that had me in floods of tears at the end. It was absolutely beautiful, and that is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, we are following the story of Achilles, but it's not from Achilles' perspective. Instead, it's from Patroclus, which I hope I've pronounced that correctly, and he is mentioned in the mythology of Achilles and in the, I think it's the Odyssey, but this book takes that story and says, what if they were lovers? And it is beautiful because you see their romance really blossom over time. You see how much Patroclus loves him in spite of how arrogant and misguided Achilles can be, and the stupid decisions that he makes, the resulting effect of that. And the ending of this book just made me sob. It was so beautiful. I loved it so much, and this is probably one that you're going to see around a lot because it is so adored. It really is just beautiful. It's beautiful writing as well. I really enjoyed this book by Madeline Miller, and I think it was a lovely retelling of the story, and you get the whole of the story. So you get the Battle of Troy and stuff, but you also get the lead up to that battle, and you also see how Achilles went through loads of training and stuff, and I just love all the mythology, and it's not info dumpy, it's not thrown at you, it is woven in really, really well. And of course this romance that blossoms between these two young boys throughout it is just lovely. I really, really loved it. Again, like The House in the Cerulean Sea, I would really recommend this one out of all the others because it is so beautiful and I loved it so much. Okay, I'm saying that, but to be quite honest, I recommend all of these books because I'm literally just thinking to myself, yeah, but also Shadow of the Fox is an amazing one. Like, there are so many beautiful romances in here and I love it. Song of Achilles, I would really recommend. My mum even read this one and she loved it as well, so it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. So that's it for my LGBTQIA plus representation. I always forget what order those letters have to go in, so sorry I've been slowing down every time I've said it, but I hope you've enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed pulling these books out, and as I said, it's made me realise that this is an area of books where I have a severe lacking of books with representation in it, so I really need to rectify that. So I hope you've taken a few recommendations from this. Do let me know your recommendations, I'm always interested in them. But for now, if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it that thumbs up and subscribe. My social media links will be linked below, and I will catch you in the next one.